now, is shot through the whole society. You know, people in law enforcement have also succumbed to right-wing extremism and white nationalism. Again, what this points up is how pervasive and vast a problem this is, and we will be dealing with it for a long time.
Got I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. As this enormous crowd shows, we have truth and justice on our side. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania. And we're going to the Capitol. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, we're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. We will never give up. We will never concede.
We can take that place.
And then what?
Take on fight.
Lucky liar.
And then I realized I didn't have my mic turned on because why would I be ready for things? Ready? That's for silly people. Hi everybody, it's me, your old pal, Big Ugly Jim, the smallest of the small streaming Andes. Why is my computer so shitty? It feels like today is plagued by demons. So if we have demons, I apologize for their demonism. I was up very, very late last night, and I'm going to be up late again tonight because that's what irresponsible grown-ups do. Last night, I didn't stream last week. That was because I was also up late that night. We had the final Dr. James Reddy show of all time, probably. That was the band that was playing the song just before I started up. And my kilobytes are lousy, and my drop frames are huge. It's a great day. It's a great day for feeling alive. Anyways, we had the last Dr. James Reddy show, and the original plan had been I had booked the show last night at the venue that we were playing, and they then this opportunity came to play with our buddies who were on tour from Saskatchewan, and we were like, yeah, of course we'll do that. It's a week before, we'll just not play the second show. And then I totally agreed to continue to book the show for the venue, and then totally slipped my mind to do that, and it was un fuck de cluster, as they say in France. And eventually I, got my shit together and got the show booked and stuff. So I had to be down at the show last night to run it. Got home at 5 in the morning. It's now noon. So a little haggard, a little tired. But you can tell that I'm conscious and I have coffee. So everything's going to be all right. If you're new to the stream, obviously do the thing where, if you want to click the follow buttons or subscribe buttons. I'm not worried when I say subscribe. I was referring to YouTube. I am a Twitch affiliate, but I don't care. This is not a thing that I'm doing for money. It's a thing I'm doing because it's a fun way to spend Saturday afternoons. And so I'm not terribly motivated to... I feel like my volume is low. I'm going to turn my volume up. I'm not terribly motivated to... push my show to the limits and become the huge Hassan streaming dude. Instead, I just like doing this. And sometimes I've got some people that'll hang out in chat and chat right there and have conversations with. So other times it'll just be me rambling about whatever I feel like rambling about. Either way, it's usually a fun time. But yeah, so if you're using the subscribe button, that would be the YouTube don't give me money subscribe button. Obviously, if you want to give me money, I'm not going to be like, no, don't do that. But it's like, do not feel obligated. Do not feel in any way. There are probably way cooler places that you could spend your money than giving it to me. I have a crow painting behind me there. So obviously, doing all right. Don't need money. Anyways, welcome. If you are new to the stream, welcome. Hi, how's it going? Hope you're well. Feel free to chat along, and it'll be good for you and me, and we can connect and interact, and it'll be rad like that. Either way, hi. So yeah, it's definitely tonight. I'm playing a show again with another band, Bodies of Everest. That was the band that had the video previous to the Dr. James Reddy one. Bodies of Everest is more of a prog metal band, and we're playing in my buddy Ryan's basement, which sounds like a very strange thing. Normally, if you're playing in a basement, it's because you're like 16 years old and you've got 400 friends that are going to come and destroy the house. That's not what we're doing. It's my buddy's doing a post-birthday party, and he's another musician, so we will be joined by his band Walk Alone, as well as a band I haven't seen before called Sonita Nueva, which is Spanish for new sound. Look at me, all Duolingoing up. And then we'll play, and then my buddy's band Owls and Eagles will play, who are fantastic. So it's like a pretty awesome lineup of bands that are just happening to be in this guy's basement. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Basement shows. I haven't played a basement show. Shit. When was the last time I played a basement show? I honestly can't think of it. I'm sure it's happened many times, but I have children. They were doing children things. They're not young. They're old enough to do children things that are sort of like, what are you doing? Oh, and not so much the, what are you doing? Don't put that in your mouth. It's a much better place to be as a parent. I do not miss the times of watching your children eat coins and joke on them, or all of the various messes. I remember one in particular, and this does not highlight me as a fine person, but I was exhausted. I don't remember why I was exhausted, but I was absolutely exhausted. I was still married at the time, so it's a very long time ago, and my two eldest kids were, I have 4 kids altogether. My 2 eldest kids were alive at the time, and they were, I think like 1 and 2 kind of like, or in that area. And I was watching the kids while my ex-wife was out doing stuff. We were married at the time, like I said. And as she was leaving, she was like, "Don't fall asleep, stupid." And I was like, "I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm a more responsible adult than that." So I fell asleep. Literally like 5 minutes before the ex-wife got home. Fell asleep on the couch. Kids are playing. Everything's fine. I blink for a second, and all of a sudden I'm out. And the door opens, and she's like, "Oh my God." And I look up, and somehow we had like a fireplace, and they had opened up the fireplace and grabbed a chunk of like very long since it had been lit, but like a chunk of wood that was all coaly, and they're like eating it and grinding it into the carpet, and I was like, oh no. Those are the things that I do not miss as a parent. There was other cool stuff along the way, obviously. Many good memories from that time. But the eating of random things and the putting of things inside of our bodies that should not go there, not a fan of that. So, what are we going to talk about today? I want to talk about populism, actually. Normally, I'm more well thought out on how my streams go, but it's been a very, very hectic couple of weeks, and I haven't got the plans in place. So we'll figure it out together as we go. It should still be fun. Don't you worry. Don't you fret none. But yeah, I wanted to talk about populism because I feel like it's obvious, but I also feel like it's not something that people get well. So we're going to talk about it. So here we have the old Googler. Populism is a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. The question is whether he will tone down his fiery populism now that he has joined the political establishment. Support for populist politicians or policies, the quality of appealing to or aimed at ordinary people. So now that makes sense, right? The term populism just basically means doing the things for what the popular opinion is. And this is the easiest game in town when it comes to politics. If you look at our political leaders, sort of past, present, future, I kind of break them down into two camps. There are those who want the world to be a cooler, better place. Oh yeah, my microphone's being silly. I think I fixed it as well as it can be fixed. But yeah, there are those that want to make change in the world and want to do good things and want to inspire their fellow masses. And then there are those that are like, what's awesome? Being a politician. I'm going to be a politician, and I'm just going to say whatever the things are that the people will go, oh, I agree with that, and then they will support me and give me the money. Sadly, I feel like that's a fairly common perspective for politicians to take, and I get it because it works, right? I grew up. We've talked about this on stream a bunch. I grew up loving me some pro wrestling. I live in a beautiful city called Calgary, which was the home of Stampede Wrestling, which was a pretty sweet local territory back in the local territory days before Vince McMahon Jr. did all his buying up of all the talent and essentially brought local wrestling to its knees. And wrestling is all about managing that populism thing. So you have the young whippersnapper who's ready to, I'm coming into the ring and I'm these people don't want to see you out here being a jerk. I'm going to fight for truth, justice, and the American way. That kind of shit. It's just this sort of simple appeal, the simple populist appeal. That's how the good guys get the face heat stuff. I guess face heat isn't the word, but heel heat is the exact opposite, where you're the bad guy and you're like, I happen to hate this stupid city full of dumb people. Look at these sweaty. We had Bad News Alan here when I was growing up, and he would refer to people as sharecroppers, and various snarky sentiments. And it's the same thing as like wearing the jersey of a hockey team from a different city, and you're like, I hate Calgary Flames. And the crowd's like, hey, that's our team. Woo, you're a bad guy. It's very simple and it's very obvious, and it works because people are very simple creatures. And when we hear the things that sound like how we feel, we get all riled up. And when we hear the things that sound like the opposite of how we feel, we get all riled up. So wrestling has always had this appeal to populism. And we go in waves with our government of being populist or not. And that sense of, it feels like things are different, but they absolutely are not. You know, I remember, was it I can't think of the name of the movie, the one where George Clooney, that big hunky dreamboat from Hunkburg, and his buddies escape prison and record the country song on the coffee can for Jimmy James. I don't know. Oh Brother Where Art Thou, I think. If I'm not mistaken, it's actually based on either the Odyssey or the Iliad, but done in a retold in a sort of dirt poor America kind of vibe. And where was I going with that? I think that was the movie. Anyways, there's like, you know, the guy who's running for election, and he's got the little midget on the back of a truck holding a broom, and you know, we're sweeping away all those lazy no goodniks in politics and crap like that. Like that's it's just always been, you know, I am one of you, not those other people who don't care about you, who don't want to represent you. I'm of the people, for the people, by the people, and that's why you should vote for me, right? Populism is, you know, everyone appeals to it in a political sense, at least somehow. I do this with work. I am obviously a weird person with weird hair and strange life choices, you know, for a person who works in a fairly sizable company doing fairly, you know, good stuff for, you know, evil corporations. I'm not really the typical for the kind of person that they would look to hire. And one of the games that I will play is I'll be like, you know, you find the ways to let the people know that you're one of them and that they are different than them, the boring, you know, stuffed shirt types. And it's fun, it's manipulative, and I don't like doing it, but it's one of those things that, like, sometimes you got to do. So yeah, like, appealing to populism. My point is, it's kind of a across the board thing. But where we're at right now is we're doing so much appealing to populism that we're riling people up to the point of the ridiculous. You know, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene losing their minds. Like, I don't want to have to turn my lights off at noon because the sun went down for, not noon, you know what I mean. You know, the sun went down and now I can't watch TV. I like watching TV. Obviously, this is stupid. And obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene is that stupid. I don't understand how people don't see this, but she says nothing except for, look at me, I'm a Christian nationalist, and so are you, and we want this country to be the golly gosh darn best ever, and we need Jesus for that. And what she's doing is she's playing that old populist card. You know, Lauren Boebert does the same thing. And it's hilarious in a sense, because these are not people like you and me. These are people who are completely different. And yet they get away with convincing so many people that they're like one and the same. It's a weird, weird world. And the more you lean into populism, the less actual substance you have. Because this is the thing, is when you take a stand, you are going to alienate people, right? You know, if you look, let's do this. We're going to look at, and I haven't prepped for this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be stunned. Sorry, I'm also dealing with allergies from hell, so yay. Let's go to, I have a package out for delivery. Hotmail has just told me that I have a package out for delivery, and I get like 86 of these a day, and it's always like, you know, click here to tell us when you'll be home, and it's, I don't know, stupid phishing bullshit. Anyways, we're going to go to, what's the fucking name of the party? Is it the CPC? Canada. That's the Conservative Party. I don't think it's the Conservative Party. What's the other one? Not Candace Bergen's the leader. Yeah, we'll do the Conservative Party of Canada. as an example. And let's take a look at one of their policies. Support Canada's Conservatives. We'll look at their governing documents. Hey Nate, how you doing, buddy? Off to Drumheller for the day. Oh, enjoy Bum Smeller. See what I did there? Hope you're doing well, my friend. Are you guys playing a show out there, or just taking a day to look at the old dinosaur bones and enjoy the desert? Because that also sounds pretty fucking good. Let's look for. They've got to have policy declaration. Jeff hired me to work sound for the Rising Sun show today. Oh, right on. That'll be awesome. I think I saw something about that on Facebook. But well, you deserve it. You're a fantastic sound guy, hell of a musician. You smell good. You look good. Life is good. There is hope for you after all, young man. I'm weird. I did not get enough sleep last night. Okay, maybe I'm getting. Where's their? Do they actually list out their policies? Because that's what I. Yeah. Oh shucks, much love. Hee hee. Okay, so theoretically, this will have something to do with policies. Let's go. I hate Google Chrome sometimes. I just want to move down, please. Where are we? Founding principles. Okay, let's just look at the founding principles. Okay, so Conservative Party will be guided in its constitutional framework and its policy basis by the following principles. A belief in a balance between fiscal responsibility, compassionate social policy that empowers the less fortunate by promotion, self-reliance, and equality of opportunity, and the rights and responsibilities of individuals, families, and free associations. What does that mean? Well, it means that they believe it's important to be good with our money while still using our hearts to ensure that we can raise up those that are less fortunate, and still ensure that the rights and responsibilities of people are supported and positively reinforced. That is kind of like saying the sky is blue, and it's blue because it's the sky, which is blue. That is a sentence that doesn't mean a goddamn thing at any real level. It doesn't give you anything prescriptive, and it also doesn't differentiate from any other political party. If you looked at unless you go super extreme, if you go to the Marxist Leninists may not really give a shit about fiscal responsibility, for example. I don't know. But other than that, any political party is going to be we obviously you have to be financially responsible, but also we have to be there for those when they need them, and give a hand up, but not a hand out. We want to ensure that everybody has the individual responsibility and the rights and freedoms that come with being a part of this great country. Every single political party can say that, because it's just genuinely true. It's a blanket, empty statement. The goal of building a national coalition of people who share these beliefs and who reflect the regional, cultural, and socioeconomic diversity of Canada. Hilarious, because according to what you see when the CPC are talking, we're deeply diverse, and by diverse I mean we have white men and white women, just not many of the latter. The goal of building a national coalition of people who share these beliefs and who reflect the regional, cultural, and socioeconomic diversity of Canada. So we want to appeal to all the people all the time, essentially. The goal of developing this coalition, embracing our differences and respecting our traditions, yet honoring a concept of Canada as the greater sum of strong parts. We're 3 points in, haven't seen a lick of anything. These are founding principles, but nothing that actually would stand out from any other party. The next one, we actually have something that stands out. The Conservative Party of Canada will operate in a manner accountable and responsive to its members. Now, what stands out about this is they specifically mention their party by name. If you said the Liberal Party of Canada will operate in a manner accountable and responsive to its members, that would also be just as valid. This is my point, is they're not saying anything. Now, again, these are founding principles, and I'm probably being unfairsies. So let's look at, we'll get to like actual policy. And I'm just going to look at certain, oh, okay, let's look at multiculturalism, just as an example. The Conservative Party recognizes the rich, diverse makeup of the Canadian population and the contribution of these communities to our history and the Canadian way of life. The government should ensure that each community is able to enhance and contribute to Canada without discrimination and barriers. Great sentiment. Absolutely great sentiment. One that I cannot argue with. And yet, I feel like this isn't policy. If this was policy, it would be like multiculturalism. Okay. So we need to encourage a stronger integration of new Canadians into our larger culture. So how do we do that? How do we foster this? Well, we have a 10-step plan that's going to say we're going to encourage free access to English as a second language for all new Canadians. If required, we're going to increase funding to job training programs, or there's a million things you could say here. Obviously, the Conservatives wouldn't say any of those because they'd just be like, we don't like brown people. But they can't say that, so instead they say the Conservative Party recognizes the rich, diverse, because that's easier to say. When you take a stand on a thing, you alienate people. And we've talked about this on stream before with regards to like the problem of the big tent party, for example. With a topic like abortion is a good example. Obviously, abortion, kind of a big deal. It's been in the news lately. Something happened and, there was a Roe and a Wade or something. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. I'm just kidding. Big contentious issue. What do they say about abortion? Let's take a look. I'm sure they have important words of wisdom. Sorry, apologies for the nasty, snurty noises. All right, so probably not under democratic reform, probably not under open federalism, probably not even under fiscal, or economic development, trade, transportation, environment, health, probably healthcare. Or health, sorry. So let's go downsies. Healthcare, medical audit, wellness promotion, protecting at-risk workers, health services, research, development, and innovation, pharmaceuticals, natural health products, assisted. Like, can you believe we live in a world where a national political party has a section of their policy on natural health products? Like, there is value to that, I know, but it just seems like a weird place that we're in. Assisted human reproduction and related research, abortion legislation. Here we go. So before I go into this, I will tell you this much. Canada has in the Constitution, is it the Constitution or the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? I don't recall which. But it basically enshrines at that national level that, doesn't matter how far along you are as a pregnant person, doesn't matter your social or economic background. If you want an abortion at any time in your pregnancy, you can have an abortion. And zero fucksies, period. Now, that gets toned down in each of the provinces, and all of our provinces have some kind of limitations on when you can access an abortion. But at the federal level, it grants that as this is a Canadian right you have as a Canadian, and we will fucking fight you. So, contentious issue. There are people on both sides of the aisle who are wildly opposed. If you are a religious zealot, then you believe that your particular sky daddy, whichever one you choose to crush on, is the guy who put the baby in your tummy, and that he has a plan for that baby, and so therefore aborting that is sticking your thumb in his eye, which is an amazingly stupid concept, because if he is an all-powerful fucking creator, then we shouldn't be able to undo what he did, because that seems like he's not that powerful then, if it's hard for him. Also, he wrote all the book details of our lives in his big-ass book, so he knew we were going to do that, so get the fuck over it. Anyways, Those people hate abortion. Fascists hate abortion. Libertarians love abortion. And you can be a conservative and be holding wildly different perspectives. So, what is their stance? A conservative government will not support any legislation to regulate abortion. Okay, that means exactly nothing. When I say that, I mean we have the right. So they're saying that they won't support any policy. Theoretically, they're saying that they will do nothing to get in the way of the fact that there is a federal right to all Canadians to have abortions. But that's not the case. They would absolutely, and they're testing the waters. And you can see with the Roe v. Wade decision in the U.S., Canada's conservatives are bringing this topic up. And I do believe that they will not actually do anything here because it's too contentious. It is not an easy win, and that's what they're looking for now. Euthanasia. In principle, the Conservative Party opposes euthanasia and assisted suicide. That is the most standy thing that they're saying here. Furthermore, we oppose the extension of euthanasia and assisted suicide to minors, to people who are not competent or people who live with psychological suffering. Hey, I am Canadian. Good to see you, my friend. So at least this is a stance that they're willing to take, and it's because aside from libertarians, most conservatives will feel comfortable with not allowing euthanasia. Libertarians are, whether right or left, believe in individual liberty over other stuff, and so the right to make the decision of when to end your life, that's that to them. They think that's fair game. If you have a debilitating disease and you are suffering and your life is shit, and you want to take that out option and not put up with it anymore, you should be allowed. The rest of conservatism is like, no, that's murder, and Jesus hates a murderer. Except when we kill colored people in other countries, that's okay. And other times too, like when someone comes up to my lawn, I should be allowed to murder them. But babies is different. A conservative government will support any legislation to tax religious organizations and stop subsidizing religious schooling by immediately allocating private school funding to public schools where it belongs. Is that... I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like that is exactly the opposite. A conservative government, in my mind, would fight any legislation to impose taxes on the religious. Again, sorry, libertarians, but the rest of the conservatives are very vehement about, you leave the church alone. The church does so many good and wonderful deeds in its good and godly ways. And so the idea of taxing the church is just not a big seller on that side. Just woke up. Bad dream. What up? Oh, I also just woke up. I was up late carousing with my hooligan music friends, and I will be doing so again tonight. So I'm haggard. And we're talking about populism. And I bring this up not to particularly poke fun of the Conservative Party in this case, but if you want to be a populist, you have to try and appeal to as wide a swath of humanity as you can. So statements like this are, bare bones. As far as I'm concerned, if you look at their statement on euthanasia or on abortion, there's nothing prescriptive. There's a little bit of we wouldn't do something here, but there's not a stance of why it's wrong. There's not a stance of what we're going to do to either scale back, if they wanted to say, yep, we're going to remove euthanasia, and here's our, we've got a policy that says that we will actively work to promote the idea among Canadians that euthanasia is just an evil wickedness or whatever. Yes, I know. I knew that's what you were saying, but I'm sleepy still in my brain, and so I was like, wait, that almost looks like a copy paste, but there's no way that conservatives would support these things. That what? Then there are these assholes. Oh, what do we got here? Where's my chat window. Let's take a look at some links that I Am Canadian is sending. Ooh, links to the Twitters. All right, let's go with a new tab and paste. Dwayne Bratt, I'm assuming that's the name. Smith, Lowen, and Jean make it clear that the real purpose of replacing RCMP with a provincial force is not to combat rural crime or exercise autonomy from Ottawa. It is to have the police report to provincial government and not enforce federal gun laws. Oh, absolutely. I cannot disagree with that. So in Canada, or at least in Alberta, I don't know if it's province-wide, but there's a lot of people who are talking, or sorry, nationwide. There's a lot of people who are talking about how, you know, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is a federal agency of law enforcement. And law enforcement, you know, all of a sudden, all the right wing wants to defund the police because of their buddy Trump, which I find hilarious. Why is my computer not plugged in and doing powery things? I'll look at it in a second. We're not dying on the battery just yet, so we're okay. But yeah, so because of this fear, and it's all fear around gun control, they get all, you know, loose in the jeans about how the RCMP should be replaced by something provincial. This is the same as the states' rights argument in the U.S. This is an attempt to undermine that, you know, governing concept of what it is to be Canadian by saying, well, we should not be forced to be Canadian. We're Albertans, or we're British Columbians, or we're Saskatchewians, or whatever the fuck they call themselves. And it's actually exactly the opposite of what they say when they're like, oh yeah, you know, Calgary's a diverse and wonderful place, and what if we, like, you know, loved Canada with all of our hearts and stuff, and instead it's like, you know what, fuck Canada. I care about my people and not the whole country. And this isn't new, right? Especially here in Alberta, our politics have long been based on a frustration that comes from, we have oil and gas revenues, and why should we have to sharesies with other parts of the country who don't have as much money as us because capitalism. All right, let's look at the next tweet here. Oh, it's the same one. It's a double upper. So some follow up. Not just to report, they made very clear they have no problem meddling in specific enforcement matters. Example, staying charged against their buddy pastors. Apparently, interfering with attorney generals and prosecutorial discretion is only a problem when it's Trudeau doing it. Very, very apt point. Apparently, the role of government is not to pass laws. It is to tell the police what laws to enforce, which individuals you enforce them on, and those individuals that you don't enforce. This is what we mean by rule of law. Absolutely. Oh, wrong link? Well, that's... I'm assuming you're referring to the second one, the Calgary Police one. Let's pop this bad boy on up into the Twitter pater. See where we're going here. What do we got? 2 Calgary men are facing charges after our investigators disrupted a 3D printing firearms manufacturing and trafficking operation. 3D printed guns function just like any other firearm and have the potential to cause real danger in our community. 66 charges later laid. So that, I don't understand how that's directly relevant. It's an interesting story, and one that would those Smith, Jean, UCP assholes protect your right to print a gun? I guarantee you that they would say that they were going to protect your right to print a gun. I don't think that they would actively do it. I certainly, anytime we talk about gun control, I'm always brought back to the greatness that was Ronald J. Reagan. J was not his middle name. I just made that up. Ronald J. Reagan was God King of a little country called California. And in that country, they had all of these, Ronald Reagan, pew pew. They had all of these terrible people who were not of the appropriate color, who suddenly started having guns. And the white people were like, oh, this is terrible. And these people were being smart about the fact that they were using guns to protect their neighborhood from the overwhelming authority exerted upon it by a shitty police force. So the, for example, these groups like the Black Panther would go where, cops are about to beat up somebody for the crime of being a brown dude in public, and they would show up with their guns, and they're not pulling guns and like freeze motherfucker. They're standing there and being like, "You sure you want to do that? Are you sure?" This is actually what the founding fathers of the U.S. intended when they enshrined the right to own guns into the Second Amendment. The ability for the citizenry to not be under the threat of elected kings, and to have the basic core of accessible political violence, for want of a better term, to be able to say, no, you cannot take advantage. That's the whole point of the Second Amendment. And it's a point that only applies to, some in the eyes. And this is, again, the same notion. They want to be able to limit and control who has those freedoms, who has those rights, all that kind of stuff. So when Reagan saw that the people who were not white were doing the things with guns that he was encouraging, and very loudly encouraging of all of the white folk for doing, he brought in gun control, because it was terrifying that, brown people would have guns. Are you favorite vegetable, James B? Sorry, I don't know what you mean. But yes, my personal favorite vegetable would be, I'm gonna go with Brussels sprouts, just because they get a shit rap. Are you telling me white people are the only ones who can conceal carry? What the fuck? This is not going to help our NRA laundry wares. Yes, that is sadly the truth. These are the kinds of conversations that populists love to have. In the last how many years, when was the last time there was any actual substantive gun control law that was put through? In Canada, we had the Long Firearm Registry Act, or whatever it was called, which ultimately was fairly toothless. Nobody came for anyone's guns. People are still, out in the middle of the sticks hunting with AR-15s, and there's no law being broken there. The idea that they're coming for your guns is just silly. There's nothing to base it on. But it's a populist sentiment that those otherkins up in the land of ruling over us, they don't understand our ways. They're not of us. And we have guns, and those guns are necessary, and they're important, and they want to take our guns because they want to impose some kind of globo-homo sodomy project on all of and it just devolves into stupid from there. But when you say these things, and when you talk about gun policies and things, or abortion or whatever, what you're doing is you're doing the us versus them, and you're saying, I'm the one of us that's the awesome one of us, and just like you, and the people who are listening are like, yeah, you are, you smart, you know things like I know things. And that's an easy way to get support. Old back joke, what is Ronald Reagan's favorite vegetable? I don't know, unless it was like Nancy. Trudeau has banned the sale of guns until the ban on... Oh yes, that is fair. The new, obviously there was, I'm referring to in past, recently we did have the, James Brady, you monster. We did have the law that was passed, and I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm also not a huge opponent of it. I feel like, there has to be some kind of gun control. Red flag laws are a great example that actively do net positive in the world when, properly implemented. We have to do something. You look at the Americans and you go, dude, your culture is gun fucked. I personally think that it's the same as the way that they tackled smoking. They have to make it less cool to own a gun, because right now all the cool people are the gun people, and not because they're all everyone wants to be a southern redneck, but literally everyone in the States is like, yeah, that's my gun. I love my gun. Loves me my gun. And cool, I get it. Like they used to feel that way about cigarettes, but they knew that they had a large problem that they had to address. So they worked the system. They spread the idea unconscious in the minds of people that turns out cigarettes are kind of gross and yucky and poo. And then they, largely saw a success at anti-smoking movements, which is a net positive, even if it was done through sort of chicanerous fashion. Okay, I am Canadian. I'm just going to pop open the link you sent, which I believe is to the recently passed Canadian law. It's a CBC article, that much I know. And apparently, internet slow. Ottawa to temporarily ban handgun imports until permanent freeze comes into effect. Government said there's been an uptick in handgun purchases since introduction of new gun legislation. This does not surprise me. So, federal government plans to fast-track a ban on the import of handguns into the country without the approval of Parliament, using a regulatory measure that comes into effect in 2 weeks. The change will last until a permanent freeze is passed in Parliament and comes into force. Government tabled gun control legislation in May that includes a national freeze on the importation, purchase, sale, and transfer of handguns in Canada. This is the part that I kind of get, but I'm not really all the way a big fan of. But I also understand the whys and the hows. Handguns in Canada are actually like you have to have some very if you want to own a rifle or a shotgun or an AR-15 even, it's sort of like you get your firearms permit and you buy it and then you good to go. In order to have a handgun, you actually, if I'm not mistaken, you have to have the advanced or whatever they call it, the secondary license, which is a lot harder to get, a lot more scrutinized. I'm all for controlling importation and purchase and sale and transfers of handguns, because handguns, while I am a big fan of handguns, when I have gone shooting in the past, it has always been the handguns that bring me the giant joy. And that is ultimately, if I was to own a gun, that's the gun that I would want to own, would be a big, powerful, fuck-off handgun. Not for personal protection, not for anything, but just because they're fun to play with. And I would do so in a safe and healthy and regulated and responsible fashion. Anyways, so they have this national ban. So yeah, when I said earlier, well, they're not coming for your guns. They're still not coming for your guns. They're just trying to make it harder for new guns to be in the hands of new gun folk. And I get it, but it's political suicide. This will be a huge issue all across the country, and the populists will use this as proof. All you have to do is say, we're going to make it so that you can't, what does it say? No importing, no purchasing new, no selling, and no transferring. So I can't give you my handgun and then be like, oh, I guess I need to go buy a new handgun or something, right? This is about limiting access to handguns, absolutely. But they're not taking it away from anybody. But that's the very next thing that they say. Oh, this website has been breached or is part of a data leak, according to whatever the fuck I'm looking at. One of the many databases shared on hacker websites that doesn't have a clear origin and may lead to false positives. Well, it's a good thing I don't actually give the CBC my money and my account information. So, good to know. Way to go, CBC. Yes, I have Surfshark, and Surfshark will protect me from all of the chicanery. So my whole point in this, I find we don't understand populism, and we get caught up in it. And we all do this. I am just as bad. I am not like, those other people, they're not like us. They believe in populism, but we, the good ones, we don't. I'm not doing any of that shit. But populism is powerful and simple. And Canadian society right now is getting sort of battered by a lot of populist movements, and populist movements that are bordering on fascist movements, like what do they call them? The Tupac, I can't even think. They used to be the Freedom Fuckers, the Convoy Creeps, Al-Qaeda, but now they call themselves Tupac because they started a church that they haven't paid for. and they're trying to evict them from this church, which is a hilarious situation in and of itself. Like, these are people who regularly, fundraise through their religious zealot connections in the southern U.S. and bring in millions of dollars to fund their right-wing wackadoodliness. This is not new. This became very obvious during the Freedom Convoy, where they're, GoFundMe hit like $8 million and shit like that, right? They're real good at the fundraising. But somehow then the money never actually gets used for anything good. So they like, I think they agreed to buy or rent or whatever this former church, and they've created their little conservative cult, which is very, very QE. And they're living in this church that they did not end up giving over all the money for. And it got to a point where the whoever they're owing the money to was like, well, I'm going to fucking evict you if you don't give me the money you owe me. And they're doing the sovereign citizen game of, we don't owe you that money. This is our space and Jesus intended it for us. And, my name on the contract, yes, theoretically that's my name, but is it though? Because maritime law, and somehow I don't have to apply my signature to me because they're different legal entities because I read a thing on the internet. Wackadoo motherfuckers. But they're doing all these games and claiming that the bailiffs have no right to remove them from the property, even though that's totally within the rights of bailiffs to do, but not in maritime law. And honestly, I don't know if they're like going with maritime law or whatever. This sovereign citizen shit though it's gaining popularity. These people say such stupid shit, but people are like, oh wow, that stupid shit appeals to me. I believe that too. They're still out there protesting. These clanvoy dudes. They're still out there protesting and screaming like every week about how Justin Trudeau is a monster who rapes babies and eats the international cock of whatever. What are they protesting at this point? A lot of the time you see them still going on about COVID. It's like, dude, that ship has sailed. Like, not that COVID's over, but it's real. We've seen it. We've experienced it. We've lived for 2 years under it. You can be upset about the fact that maybe you feel that some of the measures that we took were too extreme or not extreme enough or whatever, and you can be, absolutely. But what is the substance of what you're saying? All you're saying is, I'm angry, and there's a movement, and we're gonna take over the world because we're angry. And like, cool story, bro. They're not gonna take over the world. They're not as big a movement as they think, but they are heavily funded, and they get a lot of attention, and they do appeal. So for example, the Freedom Convoy was not all a bunch of fascists. It was a lot of people who were good-intentioned people who were frustrated by the whole concept of government mask mandates and vaccination mandates and stuff, which I get, although I do feel like, some of that shit was just stupid. Like the being against the mandates, like, okay, you don't have to support them, but we're living through a fucking pandemic, so just suck it up, buttercup. But there were people who were legitimately frustrated by all of this, who were standing side by side with these people who, give them support, give them the look of having more numbers, without realizing that, like, the Freedom Convoy at its core was a fascist movement intent on removing the Canadian elected officials, not just Prime Minister, but all of the elected parts of our Canadian government, and replacing them with a coalition of the Al-Qaeda freaks. That's a weird look. That's not the most freedom when you remove people's freedom like that. It's weird. Anyways, TP, OC or whatever, like the People's Party of Truth and Joy and Glorious Revolution, whatever the fuck they called themselves. Bunch of fascies screaming about sovereign citizens and sovereign this and, don't tread on me that. And we're so bad as a society at dealing with this. Like, this is why the convoy went on as long as it did. These people were given a deadline of midnight on, I think it was Wednesday, like Thursday morning, like 12:01, you have to be out. They're not out. No one has bum rushed them. It's almost as if they're white and not threatening the status quo. Weird. Why would our system be set up like that? Could it be systemic racism? No. Get that thought out of your head, you pretty little head. Speaking of pretty little heads, I'm going to poke mine outside for a couple minutes. I will be back, but in the interim, I will play some of my genuinely glorious music. The music of the new People's Revolution or some shit. Maybe it's cool. And no, I'm not going to recommend Windows 11 to a friend or colleague. Fuck off. Alright, I will mute my mic and put... Okay, I am back. I will take the thing off my face, and the world will be slightly less Muzaki. There we go. All right. So, I brought up populism just because I keep seeing it. It's sort of all places all the time these days. And it's troubling when you see groups like TP, OC, whatever the fuck they're calling themselves. The Unity Party of Canada, which is not a fan of unity. You know, you can always smell a good extremist party when they use words like unity or people or republic or freedom in their name, because almost always they're not about those things. They're about all the opposites. I have been watching with some giggling a little bit of the coverage of this eviction thing. I don't want to go into it because I just don't want to talk about these fucking people anymore. But populism's an interesting thing because it allows us to say things without saying things, to appeal to people without having a reason to appeal to people, right? If I just go, hey, I'm like you, then you go, oh, okay, you must be like me. Versus me saying, hey, I have, strong policy stances on these subjects. And you go, well, some of those I agree with, but some of those I don't. Because that's how humans is, right? We don't all, no group is a monolith. But you can appeal to the individual or you can appeal to the masses. And it's a lot easier to appeal to the masses by just saying fucking nothing. I remember, let's do another, we're going to look at another thing. We're going to look at the People's Party of Canada's website. Similar to what we did with this CPC thing that is up on the screen right now. So, People's Party, is it People's Party of Canada? The PPC. The another conservative party. We'll take a look at there, because they'll have, our platform. Look at that handsome fella right there. He's young, he's hip, he's with it. You could imagine yourself being at a rave, buying drugs off this man. He's one of us. He's one of us. Me, as a punk rock kid, live music fan, I absolutely know that I've crushed many a beer with this man, Pierre, and he is definitely of the people, for the people, by the people, and not just a greasy shit. All right, so platform. Interestingly, the top thing on their platform is pipelines. That's interesting. Pipelines are a thing for me. I believe there's a current state necessity to deal with and implement pipelines, but they have to be pipelines that we're going to ultimately use not just for oil and gas, because there will be other fluids that we need to move, and we need to get the fuck off of oil and gas. That's a thing. They want our oil and gas industry to grow. I want our oil and gas industry to stop making record profits on the backs of their workers, and also to do things like, be good and not shitty, and, invest in alternatives, because their whole industry will die. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Firearms. So the People's Party of Canada has to appeal to all of these different groups, the super Christians and the libertarians and stuff. The use of firearms has always been part of a Canadian tradition and culture. Today there are over 2 million hunters, ranchers, trappers, farmers, target shooters, recreational shooters, and collectors who possess firearms in our country. All true statements. However, despite this group being exceptionally law-abiding, okay, not always true, but okay, and the most highly vetted segment in the Canadian population, again, a bit of a spurious claim. I do believe that Canadian firearm legislation that exists is much stronger than, I'm dropping a bunch of frames and going nutsy with the connection. I don't know why. I don't know if it's Twitch. I don't know if it's my internet provider. I don't know if it's what, but yeah, apparently things are a little shaky. So if I'm doing robot things, you'll have to forgive me. Despite this group being exceptionally law-abiding and the most highly vetted segment of the Canadian population, the existing firearms legislation unfairly targets them, does not respect their property rights, and is highly arbitrary. The latest addition to this unfair legislation is the Trudeau government's ban of thousands of guns on the basis of appearance, rather than function through a simple cabinet decision. That's weak. I don't think they're talking about handgun ban in this case. They're talking about the Trudeau government had put through a thing that was like, hey, maybe what we would do is not have AR-15s and things legalized because they're really only used for murder killing, or at least they're heavily used for murder killing. And there's something to that in the macho-ness part of the equation. So when I say that, what I mean is there is a vibe among the world that there are certain guns that are just es muy macho. When I was a kid, it was the AK-47, which actually was a fairly shitty gun. But it was the one that, like, all the cool kids have AK-747s. 747s? That's actually a band. AK-747s. Shout out to them. They're fucking rad. But the AK-7... I keep doing it. AK-47s. And now it's the AR-15 or the Glock, for handguns. So I think that's what they're talking about. And there is some validity to the statement that the AR-15 is probably not the worst gun, and yet we focus on it because it is the one that people want to have in their storm the Capitol moments. That's kind of why. It's not because they're looking at the gun and being like, that gun looks 13% more angry, we got to get rid of it. Like, if that was the case, then they would just paint it pink and sell it to people as a girl's gun and do the thing. So it's a bit of a hokey pokey lie, but also a bit of a there is some truth to it. The process of their decision making wasn't really concise and accurate and perfect, and so therefore it's a thing to poke at. In 1995, Bill C-68 created the Firearms Act, the strictest gun control legislation in Canadian history. Its most controversial feature, the creation of a long gun registry, was repealed in 2012. The Act continues to classify firearms into different categories for reasons which frequently have nothing to do with their function. Firearms can also be assigned new classifications at the whim of a bureaucrat. What is legal one day can become illegal the next. Under the licensing system of the Act, the ownership of firearms has become a privilege that can be revoked or altered at any moment, which I support. I don't like they're coming for your guns, but if you are someone who owns a gun and you are fucking dangerous, then that is a privilege that should be able to be revoked. And it's not at any moment. There's rules, there's process, there's conditions. It's not like they can just go, you know what, I don't like you, you have to give me your gun now. It's that's just a very childish way of framing it. Legal gun owners can lose their property and even have their life ruined by being criminally charged through their inaction by not keeping their paperwork up to date, for example, or due to the moving goalposts of Canadian firearms law. Now, I do agree with the concept of moving goalposts is difficult. When you are trying to be a legal gun owner and they change the rules and all of a sudden you're no longer a legal gun owner, that's shitty. Absolutely. So a good example would be if you owned an AR-15 and then the government said you can't have AR-15s in this country, then you're like, but how did I just suddenly become a criminal, right? Fair, but not really a thing. Not really a thing that happens. And by not keeping your paperwork up to date, for example, well, yeah, you have responsibilities as a legal gun owner, so you have to meet them. Kind of like, if you are a legal car driver and then your driver's license expires through inaction, you forgot to get it re-digitalified, re-upped for another bunch of years, then you can get in some trouble for that because you would be considered driving without a license. Even though you had a license, it's expired, and expired things are bad. You don't put expired meat in your mouth. You can't drive with an expired license. These are the rules. our plan. Canada's firearm legislation must protect society from the criminal misuse of firearms and prioritize the deterrence and punishment of criminals. I agree with that. Part of the purpose for all of these gun control things is to make it as difficult as possible for illegal gun owners to have access to guns. Peaceful and responsible fire owners deserve a legal framework that protects their property rights and treats them with fairness and respect. We need a common sense approach to gun control that promotes safety while removing the threat of arbitrary criminal prosecution. Not arbitrary. Again, moving goalposts aside, if we're talking about, you let your paperwork slide or you didn't bother doing your paperwork or whatever, then you're actually not a legal firearm owner. You just did the thing. So fairness and respect kind of go out the window because you fucked up and you knew you fucked up. And if you didn't know you fucked up, well, you probably should have, right? If I own a car and the government passes a law that says a regular car, not a super cool Tesla, government passes a law that says, hey, every single car has to be powered by vegetable oil and love. And I don't do anything about it, whether it's because I didn't know about it or because the law changed and here I am with, my old gas guzzler or whatever. Like, I'm still at fault. I'm still the one who didn't do the thing. I don't think anyone's going to jail for this shit, but this is what they'll whine about. People's Party government will replace the Firearms Act and supporting legislation with new legislation that will prioritize effective measures to improve public safety and fight crime. Note, totally lacking any explanation there. Replace the costly and burdensome licensing system with an efficient lifetime certification system for firearms owners, following mandatory vetting, safety training, and testing. So you only have to pass the test once, and you never have to prove that you are a responsible firearmer ever again. To avoid criminalizing peaceful and responsible gun owners and guarantee their property rights, this system will legalize single possession of firearms for certified Canadians as long as they use their firearms lawfully and don't commit some other crime that would disqualify them from firearms ownership. I don't strongly disagree with any of that. I am a guy who enjoys guns, and I have no problem with living in a society where guns exist, as long as they're being properly used and properly stored and properly regulated and properly this, that, and the other fucking thing. Require that all firearms categories be based... Oh, shit, hit the wrong button. Be based on function, not on looks or arbitrary political whims, and reclassify all firearms based on a simplified classification system as proposed by the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. This will remove ineffective restrictions which unfairly target sport shooters but have no deterrent effect on criminals. I disagree that they have no deterrent effect on criminals. If you're making AR-15s illegal, yeah, it's true that most criminals would go, oh, okay, well then I'll buy the AR-16 or whatever. I'm obviously talking out of my ass here, but the macho of particular guns does factor into this equation, and people wanting a gun to feel like big, strong lads or lassies. That is a thing that is real, so I understand why they do this, what they would call arbitrary political whims and based on looks and not on function. The problem is that function is pretty open-ended, right? The function of any gun is to take bullets from point A and put them into point B, hopefully leaving point B with a hole in it. But this shit, when you're going on function, you can break that down in a gazillion different ways. Assault weapons. Okay, well, assault weapons, there's a fairly arbitrary, there's lots of stuff around the edges of that will bleed over into other things. And, it just becomes stupid. Automatic weapons. Well, what is automatic? Well, we got semi-automatic, but how semi-automatic if it's got a bump stock and all this shit? It's not a simplified system that works. There's no there's a clear demarcation between this type of gun and that type of gun. That's just the world. They're going to repeal Trudeau's 2020 cabinet decision to ban 1,500 types of firearms. This is the thing that Trudeau did with the AR-15 and other things. Mandate that all future changes to firearms regulations be completed through Parliament only. This means that neither the RCMP nor Cabinet will be able to move the legal goalposts for legal firearms owners without the approval of Parliament. I don't all the way disagree with that either. But anyways, I brought this up. This one, full of prescriptive statements. Because kind of across the board, the conservatives are going to, almost without exception, be pro-gun. And so this is an easy win. Let's look at something that's not an easy win. And again, we're going to look at abortion. Let's see if we can find... Did not have a particular thing. Yeah. That's hilarious. They don't actually speak about abortion at all. They talk about healthcare. So let's see what they say about healthcare, because why would you go into any specifics? That's almost like I'm proving my own point here. So, healthcare issue. Canada's public healthcare system has the dubious distinction of having the worst wait times of any developed country. Healthcare costs have been increasing at an unsustainable rate, putting more and more financial pressures on the budgets of provincial governments. This situation is likely to get worse with Canada's aging population. And as we saw during the COVID pandemic, or scamdemic, our healthcare system is too rigid and bureaucratized to quickly adapt to a crisis situation. That is all very true, but the reason that we have the worst wait times are because we have conservative governments who just consistently slaughter the budgets of healthcare, because why wouldn't they? Healthcare is an exclusive provincial jurisdiction. However, for years, the federal government has insisted that the province satisfy a series of conditions set in the Canada Health Act. That's where abortion is federalized, my bad. In exchange for transfer payments. These conditions discourage innovation. Also, the money does not directly fund healthcare services. It is simply added to the province's budgets, and they decide where and how to spend it. That's very true. Personally, if I was the boss of the world, I'd be saying, okay, here is a chunk of money from the federal government to each of the provinces, dependent on their need and all that kind of stuff. And you have to use this for healthcare, and you have to use this to ensure that you are in compliance with the Canada Health Act and any of your provincial legislation that doesn't countermand that. All this confusion and undue interference leads to bickering between Ottawa and the provinces over who is responsible for the failings of our healthcare system and how much money Ottawa should contribute. It prevents the implementation of sound reforms. I don't disagree, but I don't think that it's the fact that they made the Canada Health Act that's causing people to disagree on this. The Canada Health Act is something of a win as far as I'm concerned. I think the Canada Health Act largely is very good. But, some of the particular nuances, absolutely not. Where the real breakdown comes is that a lot of the conservative governments across the country are not fans of public health care. They like the idea of privatized healthcare because they like the idea of privatized fucking everything. And I get that. That's, it's a perspective I don't share, but it's not a legally horrible, reprehensible one. It's just a different perspective on how things should do. And what they're doing here is they're kind of hinting to that. They're talking about, it's all about money. It's not about, sound reform of the healthcare system, which sound reform of the healthcare system, I'm fairly certain what they're really saying is increasing private healthcare. We want to have a bunch of tiers, not just a 2-tiered system. Let's have a 13-tiered system here. Because at the end of the day, the people who are in the People's Party of Canada want to have the best damned healthcare there is, but aren't so bunged up about whether or not you get that. Facts. Canada is among the OECD countries that spend the most on healthcare. Ottawa's healthcare transfers to the provinces have more than doubled since 2006, from $20 billion to $43 billion in 2021, with nothing to show for it. Nothing? Is it nothing? Because I feel like we have universal health care here, and that costs money, And that, is a thing that we have to put money into. So the more that provincial governments scrap their budgets for spending, the more that just comes from the federal government. Seems to me like there's some pretty simple math at play here. Implying that we're getting nothing to show for it is pretty bullshitty. And once again, this is the problem I have with conservative take on this, is that if you look at healthcare as a industry, then yeah, we're heavily subsidizing, and isn't that just the worst? And shouldn't we just privatize? Because, healthcare could be profitable if only those damned politicians didn't get their fingers in it. The problem is that that's a pretty stupid way of approaching things. Healthcare isn't an industry. Healthcare is a service. And services cost you money. And the more that you put into a service, hopefully the more you get out of it. I do believe that, healthcare is a thing that should be freely available to all on an equal equal playing field. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. You should be able to not die of cancer. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. You should have access to an MRI. And the reason we don't have these things has nothing to do with fighting over finances. It has everything to do with provincial governments going, well, no, I'm not doing that. We're closing hospitals. We're going to blow the general hospital up, and that'll be fun. We'll make a big media event out of it. We're going to close at the same time the Holy Cross Hospital, the two big hospitals that were in the downtown core. And then we just didn't have one. We had the 8th and 8th Clinic for quite a long time, until such time as we finally got the Schumer Center opened up downtown, which they would love to shit scrap. That's just a thing. It's a sneaky, cagey way of presenting this as a financial issue. That is the financial part is the reason why the system sucks. And that is not the case. We have closed down hospital beds. We have failed in planning for the pandemic. We did not do the thing that we needed to with having labs that were going to be able to readily jump on the production of COVID vaccines here in Canada, as an example. We didn't do that. That was a choice. It was a financial choice, and we failed, and we suffered as a result. So let's not pretend like it's because the federal government passed the Health Act. That's wrong. The fundamental problem is that we are the only developed country where the government has a monopoly on medically required care. I don't know if that's an accurate statement. I would have to assume that the national elf in Britain would be a similar monopoly. I don't know. I don't know the British system. But this is the point. This is the thing. They're talking about the monopoly on medically required care. Because they can. Patients in these countries have a lot more choice than Canada. Oh, sorry, I skipped a bit. All other OECD countries have mixed private-public systems, and with the exception of the United States, universal systems that guarantee citizens equal access. So the only difference is we have a universal system, but we don't have the addition of private-public. Although we do. I mean, we have private healthcare clinics in this country. I don't know why they pretend like we don't. But our focus is generally on universal healthcare and making sure that universal healthcare is excellent. There are limits of what you can do as a private system in Canada. So that's absolutely true. You can't have a private hospital, if I'm not mistaken. You can be a private doctor. You can have private facilities like MRI clinics and things like that. But you couldn't just make the St. Dave's cool ass private hospital. That's a thing you can't do. Patients in these countries have a lot more choice than Canadians. They can be treated in public or private hospitals with the government or their private insurance paying for the treatment. Wait times are non-existent, bullshit, or very short, and nobody is denied care because of low income. Really? Nobody? In the States, there's nobody denied care because of low income. But here's the thing. It's not just about denied care because of low income. I knew my ex-wife was friends with a lady who lived in the U.S. and she was like 36 weeks along or something, like in a pregnancy, and that's a good long chunk of time. And my ex-wife was like, "Hey, how's the pregnancy going? You know, what is your doctor saying?" And she's like, "Oh, I haven't been to the doctor yet. I can't afford that. Like, they want you to go every month, like a sucker, like a chump, go to your doctor when you're pregnant, but who can afford that?" So I just don't. My husband's insurance doesn't cover it, so we're waiting until, like, 30 minutes before the baby's due. We'll do a quick top up, make sure everything's tickety-boo, and then we'll be good. And hearing that, I was like, that is the difference in our systems. Yes, it costs us money to have people going to see the doctor all the time, but there's reason. There's a reason why that's a sound and wise investment. So what in the fuck is America doing? Implying that because we don't have private system, in addition to the public system, is why we have wait times, is a fabrication and an all-out intentional misleading of the case. And that just pisses me off. The reason we have long wait times is because we don't have as many hospitals. We don't have as many medical professionals. We don't have as many blah, 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 blah. And in some cases, we're very geographically remote. And those things all factor into wait times as well. So, if you're living in a big city, sweet, cool, fuck, kick ass, right on. You have access to, here in my city, I think we've got, 5 hospitals or something. I don't even know. So, that's going to make it a lot easier than if I was living in fucking Nunavut, where, in the middle of nowhere. That's a thing. That's going to affect all this stuff. But the big thing is the number of beds, the number of cuts to healthcare, the cuts to funding for healthcare practitioners' salaries, healthcare people who feel the need to move to the States because they can't make as much money here because of budget. Now, I'm not saying that we should just give a blank check to the healthcare industry. Absolutely not. But there's a balance that can be found that would automatically reduce wait times by just encouraging more people to work in that field and in Canada, and also opening up those beds and making sure that the staff are available and compensated sufficiently to meet that need. That's how this works. That will cut wait times. But instead, we don't do that. We go, what we should do is we should privatize. So you cut the life's blood out of a system, and then you go, look, it's not working. We should have a different system. Or maybe you stop fucking cutting it, you dumb shits. Our plan. It's up to the provinces, states' rights, to implement reforms in line with the more efficient and less costly mixed universal systems of other developed countries. Throwing more federal money at the problem, as all the other parties are proposing, is not the right approach. Au contraire, mon frere, it is part of the problem. Provincial governments will never make the tough decisions if they can always blame Ottawa for not sending enough money. We must end the current confusion over who does what and who is responsible for the problem. Now, I don't disagree with this. I feel like we're going to have some disagreement when it comes to the how we do this. Because the reality is the provinces are just going to, they're personally motivated to mismanage the money in this regard because they just get more. I'm not going to disagree with that statement. But to imply that, I love this, less costly mixed universal systems of other developed countries. If you look at the U.S., it's not that the healthcare system is less costly. It's less publicly costly, perhaps. But it's a lot more privately costly. We're passing the cost on down the line to the people who sometimes can afford it and other times have to make choices that involve not getting necessary treatment because they don't have the money. That's shitty, period. A People's Party government will replace the Canada Health Transfer cash payments with a permanent transfer of tax points of equivalent value to the provinces and territories to give them a stable source of revenue. In practice, Ottawa will give up its goods and services tax and let provincial and territorial governments occupy this fiscal room. In 2021-22, the GST is expected to bring in $41 billion in revenue, almost the same amount currently transferred by auto. So that's interesting. I didn't know that those numbers were quite accidentally so similar. The concept of tax points, like, I'm no accounting John. I'm not a Johnny accountant. I don't know the fuck I'm talking about with this. But to me, the answer would be to say, okay, you know what? We recognize that we have to fund it. This money has to go to healthcare, has to go to the general healthcare fund of a province. And this is how much it's going to be. So, you know, you're going to need to make up the weight on any, you know, missing funds. And you have to. That'd be how I revise this. Instead, they're like, you know what we'll do? We're going to use tax credits and we're going to do a little jiggity pokety dance and it'll be good. And I don't trust any of that sentiment. Establish a temporary program to compensate poorer provinces whose revenues from the tax will be lower than the transfer payments they used to receive. Okay, that's fine. If you are going to cut the transfer payments down, then having some kind of program to make sure that the need provinces are not suddenly fuckled. But I don't like the word temporary. Do not like it. And create the conditions for provincial and territorial governments to innovate. They will be fully responsible for healthcare funding and management and fully accountable to their citizens for the results, while Ottawa will respect the Constitution and stop meddling. So yeah, I was hoping that would be about abortion, and yet not a single goddamn word about it. The list of policies here in their platform is very, very reduced, and it's because they can't take a side. Taking sides, that's for people who have gumption, have guts. Taking a side is scary because you might take a side that not everyone likes, and wouldn't that just be the shit? It's a funny thing. My problem with I'm rambling a little bit. Like I say, was up very late last night. My problem with all this is the disingenuous nature. So the People's Party of Canada will say things like, "Oh yeah, we're doing the populist thing. We're like you, not like those other guys up in Ottawa with their elite liberal agenda and all that shit. We're common people," which they never are. They never are. They're always fucking CEOs or QAnons. That seems to be the two that are in the People's Party. And neither is a good look, in my opinion. They play the populism card. They have very strong comments on the things that are safe for them to talk about. Nothing on their site talks about abortion. The CPC site, which is the Conservative Party that we looked at earlier, the only thing they said about abortion is we don't want to talk about it, literally, because they understand that it's actually a very accepted part of the healthcare landscape these days in like every reasonably thoughtful land on earth except the U.S. because, oh wait, no, I said reasonably thoughtful. Still works. The problem is if you go, yeah, no, 70% of people super support access to abortion for women with some kind of rules of thumb applied. Okay, we're willing to go with that. You do that, and the conservative Christians are going to be like, oh, so you're about baby murder. So you can't say, oh yeah, no, you can't alienate them because they're voters. They will vote, and if they feel like you're taking that stand, and then the other conservative party goes, but we would never kill a baby, then you lost those votes. And there's a lot of people who are, mostly single issue voters. People who like guns or abortion or Jesus are like the only fucking piece of the pie. They don't want to hear about fiscal policy. They don't want to hear about foreign policy. They don't want to hear about, public health management. They just want to know that you're not going to murder a baby or bring in Sharia law, right? Like that's a thing that anyone's doing. But these people will just turn their backs on you. So you can't say anything about it. So the People's Party of Canada want to separate themselves from the Conservative Party because they're ultra-conservative versus the Conservative Party, which is ultra-conservative. I get confused around the edges. But they can't take a stand on anything aside from the obvious wins. They can go to great length about privatizing healthcare, privatizing education, making it so that universities are no longer funded at the post-secondary level by the government or reducing that funding. They can talk about waste. They can talk about guns. They can talk about immigration. They cannot take a stand on any of the things where people might have a difference of opinion, because then you're not a populist. Then you're not, hey, I'm just like you. If I say, you know what, let's make it legal to kill even more babies in the abortion game. Obviously, I would phrase that differently, but if that was the stance that I, as a theoretical conservative politician, wanted to take, there would be people who would immediately no longer see me as one of them. I would actually be one of them, the evil other. And then if I go, oh, you know what, you're right. Cool. We're gonna stop access to baby killing. Then there's other people who will be like, oh, you're not one of us. You're against us. You're a danger to us. There's this implied level of threat on both sides of the abortion debate that makes it so nothing gets done. Makes it so people don't do things. And it sucks. It's lame. It's stupid. It's silly. There's no point. Now, I didn't mention my stats on abortion, but I might as well, since I was rambling about it for a while. I will say I like the way that it is framed in the Canadian Health Act, and that is that tough shit, you want an abortion, you get an abortion. That's just period. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to be X number of weeks along. You don't have to have a good enough reason if your life doesn't have to be in danger. I'm for that. People have this, oh, hey, something just happened. Reformed Plush Actually is now following. Hello, Reformed Plush Actually. Good to have you here. I hope you're enjoying. Where was I going? I got so distracted. That noise was loud in my ears, and I was like, oh, a thing. Because I'm a simple creature like that. Shit, where was I? What was I saying? I was talking about... Oh, yeah, my take on abortion, yes. So you would be okay for someone to get an abortion right before the baby pops out? Yep, I would. The reality is that this is something that doesn't happen. No one is sitting around like week 39 going, you know what? Never did really decide on that abortion thing. Abortions don't happen then. When they do happen at the late term, it is because of medical emergency. But at the core of my being, if you don't want to have a baby, don't have a fucking baby. And you can go, oh, well, then you shouldn't have had sex. Well, childbirth isn't a punishment. But you think someone should be allowed to if they want? Yeah. That's what I believe. I feel like if you're in a situation where maybe your world changed and you suddenly are in a place where you can't do this, okay. Who am I to say, no, you can't. You had the sex, therefore you have to have the baby. Should they be allowed to kill a baby after it comes out 1 second after? Well, now this is the thing where we're splitting hairs. No, I don't think they should be allowed to kill the baby 1 second after it comes out. That's, and it's an arbitrary thing. I absolutely recognize that it's arbitrary. But we're talking about impossible, not impossible, but like deeply unlikely scenarios where someone is making the decision at that impossibly late moment. I know you feel like you're getting me on this. Why not? The parent can't support it. They don't want it. Because at that point, there has to be an arbitrary line. And it is always arbitrary. And fine. If we want to say birth is a line, fine. I'm not opposed to the idea of the way that we do it with trimesters. Although, again, I support the idea that people should just be allowed to have abortions if they goddamn want. Because these scenarios don't happen. But, yeah, there has to be some arbitrary point where you go from, okay, well, now you are doing the abortion versus now you are killing a child that has been born. I like the concept of viability as an arbitrary line for that, but if it was me, I absolutely would just be like, yeah, 1 second before the baby is due, if you want to have an abortion, fine. That's a stupid argument because it does not happen. And I get it. I get what you're trying to do is you're trying to sort of test my commitment to the bit. Like, well, how is it that it's suddenly a baby after it was born? And you're right. It's completely arbitrary. But given that that is not a scenario that, you're what you're talking about is an extreme unlikely scenario. Okay, I'll bite. In that extreme unlikely scenario, I would say that the moment the head pokes out, that's when it becomes a human, because it's an arbitrary distinction no matter what. We have no means of actually finding the point where it's no longer moral to perform an abortion, and so it has to be an arbitrary one. I'm okay with that. If this was a thing, if people were going in for 39th week abortions just because they couldn't afford it or whatever, maybe we would need to look at that. But it's not a thing. And honestly, it's a distraction tactic in the debate. It's a means to try and force someone down to, this is the point where I'm willing to die on this hill. And then after that, I won't. You don't think the point is considered human is when it's developed some consciousness, not just when it moves out of the body. No, I don't. We don't know what the fuck consciousness looks like. To me, like I said, viability is from a legal consensus building kind of perspective. I think yes, we do. Oh, do we? We understand when consciousness exists. That's an interesting statement. I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with you. We can't know when a baby has a sense of who it is and that it is a separate unit of existence within the grand sphere that is God's jubilant pageant. That's just not a thing. We don't know what that looks like on a baby MRI. And it's, again, still arbitrary. What if you said, okay, let's just say consciousness. Let's just say that the moment that the baby was conscious, that we would say that's the line. Okay, cool. What is conscious? Well, you can come up with any number of things, but then you say, okay, well, that's the line. We come up with the exact moment, and then there will be people going, so 1 second after that is murder, but 1 second before it is not, because it's an arbitrary line. Right? We're just picking a spot that we're comfortable with. As I said, I'm comfortable with the potential for someone to have a abortion at 39 weeks. I don't see that as a viable thing, but if that's what someone wants to do, cool, go for it. It's an arbitrary distinction, and I'll gladly put the arbitrary line there. We have arbitrary line when you can just say all murder is wrong. Because not all murder is wrong. And when you say it's murder, you are taking a stance that is not something that I agree with. I don't consider abortion to be murder. You can disagree with that, and that's cool. And that's why we have arbitrary lines, because what we're trying to do is come up with something that makes the most sense for the most people. Now, for you, I'm assuming that you are someone who is pro-life and believes that absolutely not. No one should be allowed to have an abortion. And that's cool. You're allowed to have that perspective. But I disagree with you. So if your statement is either we kill, have an arbitrary line, or just don't allow baby murder, well, I don't allow baby murder either because I don't see it as baby murder. That's why we have to have arbitrary lines. That's why we have to come up with some rule of thumb to define what that access looks like if we have it. I'm very opposed to removing that access because it's terrible. Now, I'll give you an example, an easy example of when murder isn't wrong. We do war. We do war all the time. My line isn't an arbitrary line. Okay, well, it actually is. Because it's to you, it doesn't feel arbitrary because you're saying that the minute that, whether it's conception or whatever the thing is, once that moment hits, then that's a life. That is an arbitrary statement. Whether you agree to that or not is kind of immaterial, because what you're saying is that this is the point, and anything before that. So, if I pull out, for example, and don't ejaculate on a person, I haven't committed an abortion. But the minute that conception happens, well, then it becomes murder. Well, that's an arbitrary point, because you're saying that you're implying that this is when this becomes viable. I'm saying never anything before that isn't anything to kill, and anything before that isn't anything to kill. I know, but I'm saying that's still an arbitrary point, because the fertilized cell is still not a living thing, in my opinion. In your opinion, it is. Cool. That fertilized cell is going to do its thing. It's going to implant. It may not implant. It may die of its own. We'll call that natural causes. But the line is arbitrary, because you're assigning life to it at that moment, when in fact there are a million ways of saying, well, no, I don't think that is a living thing. I don't feel any guilt over cutting my toenail. The toenail is a poor example, because I think the toenails are actually dead. But cutting if I have a hangnail and I yank it out, that's me taking out very vile cells from my system, because they're hurtful and they're poking me. But they're not living things. But they are living things. They were. That's obviously not murder. And it's a silly argument. But my point being, you're looking at one moment and saying that is when life happens, when we don't have an answer to that. You're just deciding that. And that makes it arbitrary. They have no potential for life, though. Okay, that's fine. Again, silly thing. Well, I'll stick with the concept of the minute that the baby comes out. The minute that the baby comes out, the baby gets fertilized. Okay, so there's potential for life. Absolutely, there's potential for life when I pull out before having ejaculated in a person. That's or wear a condom, right? I have denied the potential for life. Was that an abortion? Of course not. It's silly to imply that it would be. But the moment that a sperm and an egg cell hit, it's okay. The potential for life is there. Is it a living thing? I don't think so. Not in the way that we attribute life and all of that stuff. I don't agree with you. Now, you're allowed to have a difference of opinion on this, and I encourage it, and you're welcome to be in the chat and question me on my takes. 100%. I'm happy to have this conversation. What I don't like is the idea that your line in the sand isn't arbitrary because you've decided that it's not arbitrary. It's all arbitrary. Because there is no moment that we can definitively define that this is when life happens. This is when a consciousness happens. This is when the viability, even viability, I mentioned earlier, was something that I consider to be a reasonable compromise in the realm of abortions. But viability is, nothing is quite so easy to put down on paper. I decided it isn't arbitrary because it factually isn't. In your world, everything is arbitrary. Oh, actually, yes. In my world, literally everything is arbitrary. I'm not going to disagree with that statement. But what fact proves that the minute that conception happens, that is a living thing that deserves the potential to go to Harvard? I don't think that is a fact. And I don't think you can support that with opinions and feelings. And those are valid and viable. And we could have a conversation about those. But to say that it is a fact is wrong. If that's the case, then every time somebody comes in somebody else and a baby gets started, then, what if the woman doesn't take care of herself? And what if the baby doesn't properly implant because of the way that the woman has not taken care of herself? Is she a murderer? Did she create a hostile womb for the purpose of murder? Of course not. Sometimes babies don't come to term. It's actually a pretty good thing. We don't need to have every single time you have sex, you make a baby, because some of us have sex. It's probably good. She didn't purposefully try to kill it. But was she criminally negligent if she didn't, do the appropriate things to ensure that this fertilized seed inside of her sprouted to fruition. Right? Isn't criminal negligence something like, I didn't purposely try to kill it, but I didn't do what I needed to do to not kill it? So would she be guilty of criminal negligence? I would say that according to your system, she absolutely would. I'm going to make an assumption here, and please feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume, are you a Christian or a religious person of some bent? You don't have to answer. You don't have to tell me the particulars. But as a person who is not religious, you're not religious? Okay. So I may very well be wrong about that. My bad. As a person who is not religious, I don't have a lot of the religious baggage of that sort of stuff that comes in. What I look at instead is I look at the utility of a thing. And people who can't have, don't have the whether it's the necessary mental place that they're in to have a child, whether it's the realities of how the child was conceived. So, for example, the rape and incest kind of thing. If we're talking about situations where the fetus is going to be, it may very well develop into something that is not going to be long-term viable, which I'm trying to think of ways to say that. But essentially, I knew a couple that had, they had many pregnancies, and many of them were terminated, but not terminated by the evil abortion doctors, but by, the fact that the woman had a genetic condition that either her children would be carriers or they would have this genetic condition. She was a carrier, and it basically like massive developmental destruction on the baby. I think at the time that they had their first child was a carrier, and then their second child that eventually came to be had the condition. And at the point when they gave birth to that child, I think that the longest the child had lived with that genetic condition was like 6 months or something. Now, a good example for you to use, because the child that they had, as far as I know, I haven't spoken to them in a long time, but they lived something. The last time I saw them, I think the kid was around 8 years old. So that's cool. But if that family had found out that this baby was going to be what it was, which was, it was tube fed, it was developmentally disabled, it was, all of that kind of stuff, I would have no problem with them saying, I can't take that on, and having an abortion. A baby's life has way more potential utility than the sacrifice a female has to make to keep it. I disagree. It's a very blanket statement that you're making there. The assumption is that no matter what, a baby's going to be good. It has the potential to do great things. The Beethoven's mom was going to have an abortion, and if the Beethoven hadn't been born, we wouldn't have all the beautiful music that Beethoven wrote. That's true, but it's not like he was the only one making music at the time. It's not like his death ultimately would have changed the landscape of our society. It's, absolutely, a baby has plenty of potential, but that potential does not outweigh the potential for the mother's decision. Or it doesn't overpower it. Charles Manson was a baby once. Could have been aborted. Wasn't. In fact, he was. I believe you know what? I could be wrong. I was going to say he was supposed to be aborted, but I don't know if that's true or if that's just something that I heard along the way. So don't quote me on that. That would be a bullshit statement from me. So a baby's life has way more potential utility, absolutely, but you can't hold that up as like, well, this baby could be president of the gosh darn United States of America, so having an abortion is wrong, because that baby could also do any number of horrible things. That baby could become the president of National Socialism land. That would be bad. The baby has a potential life of 70 plus years. The mother just needs to keep it for less than a year, and then it can be given away if they can't support it. Holy shit! Was that? Did you hear that? I will respond. Did you hear that? like massive ass thunder. I think that was thunder. Is it raining out? I think that was thunder. That was fucking loud. I don't know if that got picked up by my mic or not, but like legitimately, like, the fuck. Okay, so the baby has a potential life of 70 plus years. The mother just needs to keep it for less than a year, and then it can be given away if they can't support it. Yes, on a purely mathematical basis, you are 100% correct. It's not math. This isn't mathematical. The idea of, you know, making a woman keep a pregnancy that she does not want. Not saying it needs to be an Einstein baby. I know, and fair enough. Let me finish the point I was making though. The mother is the one who is going to go through the process of having a child. That involves financial problems and burdens. That involves personal, spiritual, emotional, whatever you want to call about burdens. It's a decision that somebody has to make. And it's all well and good to say, well, they shouldn't have had sex, but that's not how people do. People will have sex and will make poor choices, and that's a decision that at that point they have to decide how they want to deal with it. Implying that this potential life of 70 plus years, you only have to put in a year to get it. Yeah, but that's a pretty fucked up year. It's a year with a whole pile of like, your life is being controlled by a particular thing. And if you don't want that thing, you shouldn't have to do it. You know, there's a pile of arguments that can be made there. One of them would be the whole thing of like, we don't force people to give blood transfusions, right? That's cool. We don't force people to give organs to one another, right? That's one type of argument. To me, my basic premise on it is that is a burden on the mother that she doesn't have to accept. And we have a system that we've created that allows for the necessary medical intervention to prevent that from happening and to remove that burden from her. And so, go for it. We're good at doing medicine, and we've come up with a way to do medicine so that this woman doesn't have to have this burden. I'm for it, period. You think the potential pleasure of that baby is outweighed by the pain of the mother in that year? Yep, I do. I think that the mother gets the decision. I don't think you can hold up the potential of, you know, this baby could be, have 37,000 pleasure units and the mother's pain units are only 14,000. So that therefore, like, it's not math. And I get it that you know, this is your perspective on it. You're not gonna make me understand something. I'm not talking about the decision at the moment. It is math. No, it really isn't, because you can't do a mathematical calculation that captures this effectively, because you know, there is a variable. It is an unknown. What if that child is a miserable shit who hates life and commits suicide at the age of 1? What if that child has no potential pleasure because of some hardwired defect in the brain that will mean that they are constantly, perpetually sad? Well, then you have just done a net harm, and you didn't factor that into your calculation, because you can't factor it into your calculation because it's an unknown, and the math is bullshit. It's not a mathematical argument. It feels like a mathematical argument, but it is not. You were the one who brought up utility. Oh, absolutely. And utility is, you know, it's great that you can apply mathematics to it, but we use statistics and probability for that. Yep, fair enough. But it's still all of that math that you're talking about is assumptions, and it's based on unknowns. And okay, you can come up with an equation that says whether or not a baby is worth it. But at the end of the day, it's a woman's body. She has the right to decide, I'm not going to have a baby because I can't do it, or I won't do it, or whatever. That's my stance. The utility of her having that option is, to me, much better than forcing her to have that child, and that child getting what the system gives. It's not assumptions, it's just statistics to assume the majority of these babies will be normal and not worth killing. Okay, but we seem to be okay with like looking at other countries and saying, well, they are worth killing. I don't think that first off, normal is not a thing, right? I adore when people bitch about neurotypical people, because there's no such thing as neurotypical. There's like we're close to what we think the society is, kind of averagey, but again, there's no normal, there's no standard deviations. That's why I put in quotation marks. Okay, cool. I may be being uncharitable there. I take that back. I don't know why you're being why you bring up other countries. I was referring to the fact that we're perfectly okay with sending soldiers to go kill the theoretically normal people in another country in an act of war. That's what I was getting at. We like to talk about how all murder is wrong, but then we don't do that, right? I think that most murder is wrong, but I'll be the first to say that there are times where murder might be a perfectly understandable scenario. It's shitty and awkward, but these are facts. I'm not a fan of death penalty. I think that is unnecessary. I'm not a fan of the majority of wars and things. You're anti-war as well? Yep, I'm anti-war. Well, I wouldn't say I'm anti-war. I don't like war, but I look at war as sometimes it's the only way. And I know that that's not anti-war, but I want to be anti-war. You can't look at a guy like Putin and be like, no, this will sort itself out. We're going to be okay. I'm sure he'll come around. All right, I'm going to take a quick break and go for a smoke. I will return. I will play some of my very fantastic Muzak. I'm going to play my horrible Muzak rendition of Bryan Adams' Run to You. And hopefully it'll be funny and all that kind of stuff. But I will return. I just need to have a quick smoke break. And then I will be back. And all that kind of stuff. And I'll put the thing on my face. And I'll mute my mic. And I'll be right back. stop the music and get the thing off my face. And we will continue. So Reformed Plush, actually. I'm very much enjoying our chat. I hope that you're also enjoying. I do want to say thank you. You've been very good faith about the whole thing. I tend to be used to people being a little less good faith about it, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you very. Real quick, I want to make sure my computer is plugged in properly. I'll be half a second. That's weird. I'm draining battery. I don't know why. That's a bad thing. Anyways, I'm back. And I poured myself some more coffee. Once again, if you're new to the stream, feel free to throw a follow in there. I know that Reform Plush actually did. I appreciate that. I am a affiliate on Twitch, which means that you can subscribe. I don't think you should do that. I don't need money from people. This is just a thing that I do for fun. And if you want to subscribe, take your money and put it somewhere else. Do something cooler with it. I don't need money. And Jeff Bezos doesn't need your money for me, so we're good. I am a small streaming Andy. Probably the smallest of small streaming Andys, but that's because I don't have the motivation to be a big streaming Andy. I actually, looking at the who's on chat, I think that Reformed Plush actually left. I could be wrong about that. And if you are here, please do feel free to continue the chat. Something that occurred to me while I was outside doing my horrible ingestion of carcinogens was the concept of this mathematical equation that could be crafted. And this is where I have real strong problems with that as a concept. You could say, okay, well, like statistically, most people are happy, so therefore, it's a pretty good likelihood that we could say the statistical chance and the probability of a positive, happy life is X, and therefore we can compare that to the misery of a mother, for example. But that's not really the full picture, right? You can't take anytime you're talking about humans and lives and things, you have to take a lot more factors into account. So, for example, what is the socioeconomic situation that the child is being born into? What is the likelihood of the foster care system that the child is raised in being positive and helpful and good, and giving a lasting benefit to their life, right? What is the person's race? I hate to be, that person, but race is a thing that's very real. And if you are, I would not want to see someone crafting a calculation that says, well, if you are this color, then you have this different potential for happiness and stuff, because that seems like bullshit. Crafting a valid, viable statistical reference for how to decide whether or not a baby coming to term and living is going to live long enough, have a good life, do good things, not be a serial killer, and die of old age. There's a lot of fucking complexity to that, and a lot of that complexity is related to things like socioeconomics of the child and the place in life that the mother is. Whether or not you can argue that just you put in your year and then you give up the baby and the system will take care of it and love it and everything will be fine. But the system isn't that fucking good at this. The system, we're not adopting these children. We're just leaving them in foster care, and foster care can be brutal. I have been involved in not as a foster care person, but there was a time when I was involved with a group called the Youth in Care and Custody here in sunny Calgary, Alberta, which, for the record, it is not sunny. It is pissing down out there. Thus the really loud thunder, which I don't know if you heard or not, but it was damn loud when I went out there. It's coming down like there's an arc floating by on my street. Anyways, you can't come up with a thoroughly thought out mathematical stance on whether or not what is a child's potential. You can, in the sense of like, you can come up with an arbitrary number, but again, it's going to be arbitrary and it's going to be based on an unknown, and so you do the best you can with coming up with it, but it's not going to be right. The care and custody thing, the stories that I heard working with people who grew up in the care system were fucking terrible. I live in Canada, where we've used the care system to basically take over the residential school system and also be there for other kids, obviously, but our numbers for kids who are in foster care who are Indigenous in origin, it's a weirdly higher than the regular kids and regular kids. I'm saying that wrong. Fuck. There's nothing irregular about being Indigenous, but the percentage of kids who are Indigenous in the care system is wildly imbalanced, and it's because after we did the whole the residential schools are bad, we were like, okay, let's bring in birth alerts. That'll be cool. That'll be better. We'll do the 60s scoop, and we're just gonna make sure that we take all the kids, and instead of putting them in residential schools, we'll put them in good white families. And that's what we did. And, going back to the comment about, coming up with a statistical number, what if the child is of Indigenous parents? And you say, okay, well, that changes the equation, right? Maybe the child is going to have a very different life because of that. And whether that's, kids who are Indigenous, who are raised in white households, often have a real hole in them for where their culture is, and a lifelong craving to understand, and things like that. So can you factor that into the equation? Can you factor in, if a child grows up in a family that has violence? Is that going to factor into the equation? I think it's not. What about the foster parents? What if the foster parents are people who are financially motivated? Because that's a thing, at least in Canada. I don't know about anywhere else in the world, but when you foster a child, you get a certain amount of money per month to do so. Just checking. Yeah, my battery's like 96%, but it shows up as being not plugged in. That's just the weirdest thing. Anyways, ADHD, probably. Foster parents that are motivated by finance in Canada, I don't think this is the case now, although I could be wrong about it, but I know that in the past, in the very recent past, if you had an Indigenous foster child, you got paid more per month than if you had any other race of child. There's a financial benefit to having foster children. My ex-wife actually grew up in the foster care system, and I would say that the people that when we met, and she was 17, she was just about to age out of the care system. The people who were her caregivers, they were not there out of the goodness of their heart. They were not there to make sure that they gave this child a chance at a bright and brilliant future. They were there to get paid. This was a job for them, and they treated those kids. They were not the worst foster parents on earth by any stretch, but they treated them not like their children, but like, temporary residents of the home who had to abide by the rules or get the fuck out, and all this sorts of shit. Throwing out the answer of, well, they can just go to foster care and then everything will be fine. Well, no, not everything's going to be fine. Maybe it will. What are the statistical likelihoods of that? How many foster kids go on to great things? Like, these are all things that, if you want to do some actual mathematical utility conversation, that's what you have to factor in. I don't think that's a practical thing. And at the end of the day, I don't think, even if you could come up with that decision, I don't think that you have the right to force someone to have a baby if they don't want to. At the end of the day, that's my stance. And Reformed Plush actually was so they can go for abortion at like 39 weeks, but 1 second after the baby's born, it's murder. This is my point: is it's always going to be arbitrary. Deciding at what point a life is a life is arbitrary every time, and deciding it that the moment of conception. Okay, well, and this was the we were going down an argument, and I think it's a solid one. If a mother is pregnant, knows they are pregnant, and do not do the things necessary to ensure that their baby has the best possible chance to go to term, is that criminal negligence causing death then? I would say it is. And if the mother doesn't know that she's pregnant, does that mean that she's, if you don't know you're breaking the law, it is immaterial. Ignorance is no excuse in the eyes of the law. So if you don't know you're pregnant, but you do things that would result in the baby dying, for example, maybe you really like that delicious pennyroyal tea, so you're drinking the pennyroyal tea, not knowing you're pregnant, and you end up having a miscarriage. Did you just commit murder unknowingly? It becomes really unclear when you start to actually look at the specifics and question it. I love that we want to live in a world that's very clear and concise, but we don't. We live in a world that's all kinds of squishy around the edges, and statements like all lives matter when it comes to pregnancy. No. I brought up the religion thing because I was like, a lot of people will take that, this is a gift from God that you are besmirching. And cool, like if that's your perspective, right on, way to go. I disagree. I don't believe in a God, but also, excuse me, who knew smoker would cough? Oh, there's some more thunder. I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe that one can argue that a pregnancy is always the result of some beautiful divine plan. If someone rapes a child and that child becomes pregnant, was that God's plan? Is that the kind of God that we have? And maybe God's plan was, and the child will have an abortion. We're pretending to know the mind of God there. God's plan is pretty weak argument. And I see that all the time. People will, like in abortion debates, people will be like, yeah, but the thing is, maybe that baby was supposed to be there because God has a plan for it. Okay, that's great. Maybe God's plan shouldn't involve rape of children. Maybe God could do better. Maybe God could find other ways to bring about his awesome, cool plans than just having rape babies. Seems like it's something an all-powerful God could probably get around. But who am I to talk? I'm just a filthy atheist. Atheists often get this attitude of like our morality is questionable or sussy or whatever. I think I have incredibly solid and clear morals, as solid and clear morals as anyone can have. And I believe I am as consistent as is reasonable. No one is perfectly consistent because, again, we live in a squishy world. But I believe that my morality is clear and understood by me and makes easy sense. I can apply it fairly simply and look at the morality of a situation. And if we're talking about a world where there's a guy in the sky who makes a woman pregnant with a child from rape because he's got a plan for that child, well, that's not a very strong moral stance. That's my 2 cents on the subject. And if God can't figure out a better way to deal with creating a life than rape, then God is not a good person. All right, I think we're going to do some karaoke now. I was kind of hoping that Reformed Plush, actually, I was enjoying that conversation. I was hoping that they'd still be around, but I understand. So, where's my tab? Here it is. I'm going to hit escape, and I can shut that, and then I only had one song pop up in my head as I was preparing for this. So we're going to do that song. And then if more stuff comes up, then more stuff will come up and more songs will come up. And if not, then I'll go have a nappy nap before my gig tonight, which is going to be an awesome gig. I'm super stoked. I'm playing at a buddy of mine's house. It'll be fun. All right, but yeah, Poison by Alice Cooper. I haven't even listened to this song in fucking forever, but I feel like this will be fun. Let's go. If you're new to the stream, I am not a singer. This is called my weekly humiliation, and it's just meant for fun. You're cruel. Oh, I think I'm early. Your cruel device, your blood like ice. One look could kill my pain, your thrill. I wanna love you, but I better not touch. I wanna hold you, but my senses tell me to stop. I wanna kiss you, but I want it too much. I wanna taste you, but your lips are venomous poison. Your poison running through my veins, your poison. I don't wanna break these chains. Your mouth so hot, your web, I'm caught. Your skin so wet, black lace on sweat. I hear you calling and it's needles and pins. I wanna hurt you just to hear you screaming my name. Don't wanna touch you, but you're under my skin. I wanna kiss you, but your lips are venomous poison. Your poison running through my veins, your poison. I don't wanna break these chains, poison. I remember more of this song than I thought I would. One look could kill my pain, your thrill. I wanna love you, but I better not touch. I wanna hold you, but my senses tell me to stop. I wanna kiss you, but I want it too much. I wanna taste you, but your lips are venomous poison. Your poison running through my veins, your poison. I don't wanna break these chains, poison. I wanna love you, but I better not touch. I wanna hold you. Oh shit, that was wrong. Please tell me to stop. I wanna kiss you, but I want it too much. I wanna taste you, but your lips are venomous poison. Well, I don't wanna break these chains, poison. No running deep inside my veins, burning deep inside my brain, poison. I don't wanna break these chains, poison. Poison. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Let's see what else we can come up with. You know what? I want to sing Harry Mason. That terrible fucking Ozzy Osbourne. This got stuck in my head yesterday, and I posted on Facebook about it. I was like, I fucking scourge all gods that placed this in my brain, because it must have been a hateful god. This will be genuinely awful. Genuinely awful. Because the song, also genuinely awful. How the fuck does this go? Shit. Maybe I don't know it. I'll hammer through no matter what. If I don't know the tune, I'll just invent one. Shit, I'm drawing a total blank on the beginning of this. Gonna be a thing. Oh, I think I got it. On his way to dinner, when it took him by surprise, and with one pull of the trigger, he would vanish overnight, dancing by the roadside, holding on. Okay, I'm gonna quickly pause because the lyrics are not changing quick enough for me to know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just gonna quickly find those lyrics in full on the Googles, and then we can continue on with this horrible fucking song. So if the lyrics look wrong, that's because Ozzy wrote them. Okay, we'll back at it. Ain't a widow, none of his wife. I don't mind. Single fine, feeling fine. And I'll see you, my friend, over and over again. Who can we get on the case? We need Perry Mason, someone to put you in place. Call it Perry Mason again. Now I gotta jump back so I can get the timing, and then I'll switch back to the other tab. We're figuring it out. Riding painted horses, oh the kids, they love it so. You can see it on their faces, how they love the wind to blow. Minding my own business, like my mama always said. But if I don't try to help them, they can wind up on the front page. That's a bad rhyme. I don't mind. Draw the line, draw me an arrow. Feeling fine. Then I'll see you, my friend, over and over again. Who can we get on the case? We need Perry Mason, someone to put you in place. Calling Perry Mason again. Shit, how does this go? I think I know. Wake me when it's over, tell me it's alright. Just keep on talking, baby, I've been doing this all night. How much did you give me? Tell me it'll be alright. Ooh, the breakdown. Ooh. Oh, I'm early. Doing too many things at once. Again, over and over again. Who can we get on the case? We need Perry Mason. Someone to put you in place. Colin Perry Mason again. 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 All right, we're gonna go equally tacky. Little Bon Jovi. I don't know what Bon Jovi we're gonna do, but we're gonna do some Bon Jovi. Okay, enough, Ozzy. You've made your point. So I live. Oh, wanted dead or alive. This will be the one. This propels me to greatness right here. Okay. This was like when I was a teen boy. Everyone loved this song. I loved this song. It's so cheesy. Listen to that wind blowing. Yeah, we're riding on the range now. Dangerous outlaws. Can't be governed by no man. Can't be loved by no woman. We're just out here, wanted, dead or alive. Like, tell me you play country guitar without telling me you play country guitar. It's all the same. Only the names change every day. It seems we're wasted away. Another place where the faces are so cold. Drive all night just to get back home. I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, dead or alive. Wanted, dead or alive. So good, so bad. Sometimes I sleep, sometimes it's not for days. The people I meet always go their separate ways. Sometimes you tell the day by the bottle that you drink. Times when you're alone and all you do is think. I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, wanted, dead or alive. Wanted, dead or alive. This is so cheesy. I love this with all my heart. Oh, I ride. That's right. I'm an outlaw. An outlaw biker, maybe an actual like cowboy tiny outlaw. Who knows? It's a steel horse, so I'm assuming I'm a biker. You can imagine me, Sons of Anarchy, my long, luscious locks billowing out behind my unhelmeted head. Because goddammit, I'll tell you what. Ooh, I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, wanted, dead or alive. But I walk these streets, a loaded six-string on my back. I play for keeps, 'cause I might not make it back.
I've been everywhere, still I'm standing tall. I've seen a million faces, and I rocked them all. I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, dead or alive, but I'm a cowboy. I've got the night on my side, and I'm wanted, dead or alive, and I ride, dead or alive, I still drive, dead or alive, dead or alive, dead or alive, dead or alive, dead or alive. Bring it down, folks. That was fun. I liked that. All right. Do I have more karaoke in me? All signs point to yes, because I am a glutton for stupid. What shows up on the side here? Somebody to Love, Audio Slave. Ooh, Welcome to the Jungle. That's not happening. I did that a while ago. Or did I? Yeah, I think I did. I think I've done Sweet Child of Mine, shit like that. I don't want to sing this vibe. Let's do some Bobby Darin. Whole different vibe. Bobby Darin. I know Mac the Knife I can do. Let's do Beyond the Sea. This is a fantastic little... Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, she's there waiting for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing. It's far beyond the star, it's near beyond the moon. I know beyond the doubt, my heart will lead me there soon. We'll meet, oh yes, we'll meet beyond the shore. We'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. That was me doing really cool dance moves. You couldn't see a camera angle. Trust me, it was awesome. I know beyond a doubt, oh, my heart will lead me there soon. We'll meet, I know we'll meet beyond the shore. We'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. No more sailing. So long sailing. Bye-bye sailing. Come on now, Captain. That makes me think I should do something totally different. I wonder if they have any house martins. Martings? You know what? I like this song by the House Martins because it is a little lyrical clip from a Bare Naked Ladies song, and Go Canada. I don't know if I've listened to this in forever. This was one of my ex-wife's bands that she loved. Happy end? Oh shit. Think I might be happy if it wasn't I was there. I'd be happy. Lovely place to be. Nope, this is not working. I do not know this song. Ha ha. Is there any other house mode? Sail the Ship Alone, Beautiful South. I feel like I tried this and failed. House Martins became the Beautiful South after. My understanding is that the guy who was the drummer for the House Martins started getting successful in the UK, and he was making money and he was being smart with it, and had a financial guy who actually screwed him over, and in the end result, he threw a bomb in the guy's mailbox because he screwed him over, and then they were like, we should be a different band now. Okay, well, you know what? I couldn't find it, so we'll just... Pink Houses shows up. I love this song. It's a good fucking protest song. John Mellencamp is a fucking superhero, and I will fist fight anyone who argues. There's a black man with a black cat living in a black neighborhood. He's got an interstate running through his front yard. You know, he thinks he's got it so good. There's a woman in the kitchen cleaning up the evening slop. And he looks at her and he says, hey, darling, I can't remember when you stop the clock. Fuck. Oh, but ain't that America? You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby, ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah. The big houses for you and me. Oh, yeah, you and me. It's got a good build, right? Like, it's a well-constructed song. There's a young man in a t-shirt listening to rock and roll station. He's got a greasy hair and a greasy smile. He says, Lord, this must be my destination. Cause he told me when I was younger, say boy, you're gonna be president. But just like everything else, those old crazy dreams just kinda came and went. Oh, but ain't that America? You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby, ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah. Little big houses for you and me. Oh, little big houses for you and me. I feel like I did not nail it for you and me there. There's something more to it, but I don't know what it would be. Oh, there's cowbell in there. Is that cowboy? I don't know. Yeah, that's gotta be cowbell. Well, there's people and more people. What do they know? No, 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 no. Go to work in some high-rise and vacation down at the Gulf of Mexico. Ooh, yeah. And there's winners and there's losers, but they ain't no big deal. Cause a simple man, baby, pays for the thrills, the bills, the pills that kill. Oh, but ain't that America? You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby, ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah. The big houses, you and me. Ooh, oh yeah. Ooh, ain't that America? You and me, ain't that America? Ain't there something to see, baby? Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah. Big houses, that's you and me. Oh yeah. We're looking for some bare naked ladies. 1 week, if I had $1 million, Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson might be a good choice. It's not in my range. I know that much. But what other options? The Old Apartment. You know what? I like this song. We're going to do The Old Apartment. If this is decent karaoke material. I don't recognize. Nope karaoke. Okay. Into the old apartment. This is where we used to live. Broken glass, broken hungry, broken hearts and broken bones. This is where we used to live. Why did you paint the walls? Why did you clean the floor? Why did you plaster over the hole I punched in the door? This is where we used to live. Why did you keep the mousetrap? Why didn't you keep the dish rack? These things used to be mine. I guess they still are. I want them back. Broke into the old apartment. 42 stairs from the street. Crooked landing, crooked landlord, narrow laneway filled with crooks. This is where we used to live. Why did they pave the lawn? Why did they change the lock? Why did I have to break it? I only came here to talk. This is where we used to live. How is the neighbor downstairs? How is her temper this year? I turned up your TV and stomped on the floor just for fun. I know we don't live here anymore. We bought an old house on the damn floor. She loves me and her body keeps me warm. I'm happy here. This is where we used to live. Broke into the old apartment. Tore the phone out of the wall. Only memories, fading memories, blending into dark tableau. I want them back. I want them back. This is where we used to live. I want them back. This is where we used to live. I want them back. This is where we used to live. I want them back. And in true Canadian fashion, that song always makes me think of Moxie Fruvis, who I will not be performing because fuck that guy. What do I want to do? You know what? Counting Crows is on the side of the thing here, Mr. Jones. We're gonna do Round Here. I don't think I've sang this in a long time, but I was at a karaoke bar, and a very, very fantastic person sang this song, and I was like, oh damn. And then this will probably be my last song, because I need some sleep before my gig tonight. Out the front door like a ghost into the fog where no one notices the contrast of white on white. In between the moon and you, angels get a better view of the crumbling difference between wrong and right. I walk in the air between the rain, through myself and back again where says she's dying. Through the door I hear her crying. Why? I don't know. I feel like I'm off timing. Round here we always stand up straight. Round here something radiates. Came from Nashville with a suitcase in her hand. She said she'd like to meet a boy who looks like Elvis. And she walks along the edge of where the ocean meets the land, just like she's walking on a wire in a circus. Parks her car outside of my house and takes her clothes off. Says she's close to understanding Jesus. And she knows she's more than just a little misunderstood. She has trouble acting normal when she's nervous. Round here, carving out our names. Round here, we all look the same. Round here we talk just like lions, but we sacrifice like lambs. Round here, she's slipping through my hands. Oh, sleeping children better run like the wind out of the lightning dream. Mom's little baby better get herself in out of the lightning. She says it's only in my head. She says, I know it's only in my head. Girl in the car in the parking lot says, man, you should try to take a shot. Can't you see my walls are crumbling? She looks up at the building and says she's thinking of jumping. She says she's tired of life. She must be tired of something. Round here, she's always on my mind. Round here, hey man, got lots of time. Round here we're never sent to better me, and nobody makes us wait. Round here we stay up very, 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 very late. I can't see nothing, nothing round here. Oh, catch me if I'm falling, catch me if I'm falling, catch me if I'm falling down on you. Said I'm under the gun. nothing around here. I changed my mind. I want to see. I can't remember what a Hootie and the Blowfish is. Only Want to Be With You. This will be my last song. It just popped in my head. Let Her Cry. That's the one. That's the one. We're going to do some Hootie. Mad Hooties. And then I'm calling it. Alone by a lamppost. Right. Trying to find a thought that escaped her mind. She says Dad's the one I love the most, but Stipe's not far behind. She never lets me in, only tells me where she's been. She's had too much to drink. I say that I don't care, I just run my hands through her dark hair, and I pray to God you gotta help me fly away, and just let her cry. If the tears fall down like rain, let her sing. If it eases all her pain, let her go. Let her walk right out on me. And if the sun comes out tomorrow, let her be. Let her be. I wonder if I should. No, if I go up the octave, it's just gonna be at the awkward point. It's one of those songs. This morning I woke up alone, found a note standing by the phone, saying maybe I'll be back someday. I wanted to look for you. You walked in, I didn't know just what I should do, so I sat back down and had a beer. Felt sorry for myself, saying let her cry. If the tears fall down like rain, let her sing. If it eases all her pain, let her go. Let her walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Let her be. I don't want to speculate how much unprotected sex happened as a direct result of both Hootie and the Blowfish. I don't fucking know. Now. Let her cry. If the tears fall down like rain, let her sing. If it eases all her pain, let her go. Let her walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Last night I tried to leave, cried so much I could not believe she was the same girl I fell in love with long ago. She went in the back to get high. I sat down on my couch and cried, yelling, oh mama, please help me. Won't you hold my hand and let her cry? If the tears fall down like rain, let her sing. If it eases all her pain, let her go. Let her walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Let her cry. If the tears fall down like rain. Let her sing. If it eases all her pain, let her go. Let her walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her be. Oh, let her be. Alright, that's just the fuck enough of that. And this is the problem with songs on the radio, is there seems to be like this genuine inability for people to just get a fucking song, sing it, and be done with it. You got to do like 8 moving renditions of the same fucking part over and over again. And I get that, and I'm cool with it. As a musician, I like to do that, but I mean, like, it gets boring. A 4-minute long song, like, I don't know how long that was. It's a 5.5 minute song, I think. Am I looking at that? Yeah, 5 minutes, 20 seconds. That's a lot of fucking time invested into what is really like 3 parts. There's verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and then like the whole ending is this drawn out redo of the 2 parts. It's fucking boring. It's one of the things I like about playing in a prog metal band is we just come up with a cool part and then it moves into this other part and you're like, oh, where was that other one? Oh, it's gone forever. You'll never hear it again. That's the rule. That's how prog do. Not entirely, but you know what I mean. Anyways, I'm babbling. It's been 3 hours and I think it's time for the off to get fucked. So I'm going to fuck off. I hope everyone that's watching has a fantastic day. If anyone is watching, and it looks like there's at least a couple bodies in the pool. Either way, have a fantastic day. I'm going to take off. I've got a gig tonight, playing at my buddy Ryan's house with 3 other pretty kick-ass bands. So it's going to be a good day. And with that, I wish you well. And in the meantime, and in between time, that's it. Another edition of Stampede Wrestling. Oh, I pushed the wrong fucking button. That would have been so much cooler. Now I have to be a whole different Ed Whalen saying, it's going to be a ring-a-ding-dong dandy.